So it's been a hot minute since I posted, and I do apologize, but I'm here now. This channel just hit 4K, so thank you for that. I really cannot express in words how much it means to me that there is a group of you who I can call subscribers of mine, and you actually want to stick around and see future content. As always, my channel content is kind of all over the place, and the video today is a first of its kind. But without further ado, I was quite a creative little kid that was constantly thinking of my own worlds and stories and characters, and it brought me great comfort for that to just be the main thing I thought about most of the time. I think looking back at it, it was a way to have some form of control and something to channel creative energy into, and something to break up the monotony of life, especially when things were bland or in a bad spot. And so whether I was at school or home or trying to simply fall asleep at night, I was thinking about my characters. Now, one key note is that it was especially triggered by listening to music and having ideas flow just from any sort of music that I was listening to, which, to be honest, I always thought was a gift as a writer. In fact, I thought the constant daydreaming about my characters was also a gift as a writer, but as I'll discuss further, it is actually seen as negative in the mental health community. Years into the future now, I have since learned that there is a term for this: maladaptive daydreaming. According to Very Well Health, some of the symptoms of maladaptive daydreaming are as follows: extensive, sometimes compulsive absorption in fantasy for several hours a day, the inability to stop daydreaming, having very detailed fantasies including plotlines and characters, having real-life reactions to fantasies like facial expressions, body movements, or verbalizations, difficulty concentrating or focusing on other things, sleep problems, especially falling asleep, replacing human interaction, and the urge to continue fantasizing when interrupted. In some cases, maladaptive daydreaming can be characterized by the need for additional stimulation, which can be expressed through extensive book reading, watching films, or gaming. And it is upon reading that sentence that I got deeply concerned, because I still am very much that person. It's also stated that maladaptive daydreaming doesn't have an exact cause, but it is used as a coping mechanism for previous trauma or social anxiety. And then other causes can include wish fulfillment, entertainment because of boredom or isolation, and regulating distress. Also, it's important here to establish it is not a psychiatric disorder, and a diagnosis will not come from a healthcare provider or mental health expert. Instead, there is a 14-item self-reporting test that can be used to assess whether someone is suffering from maladaptive daydreaming. And actually, the test we're going to take today is a 16-item test. The 16-item maladaptive daydreaming scale. The 16-item maladaptive daydreaming scale 1. Some people notice that certain music can trigger their daydreaming. To what extent does music activate your daydreaming? And then it looks here like we have the scale of 0% being never and 100% being very often. This one is 100% a given. I cannot usually listen to music without it somewhat reminding me of characters. Okay, on to question 2. Some people feel a need to continue a daydream that was interrupted by a real-world event at a later point. When a real-world event has interrupted one of your daydreams, how strong was your need or urge to return to that daydream as soon as possible? I'm kind of answering for my kid self and my current self here, but this is probably just middle of the line, so I'm just gonna give it like a 50. How often are your current daydreams accompanied by vocal noises or facial expressions? For example, laughing, talking, or mouthing the words. This is probably kind of embarrassing, but I need to answer 80 on this one. If you go through a period of time when you are not able to daydream as much as usual due to real-world obligations, how distressed are you by your inability to find time to daydream? I was gonna go 90 on this, but I think I'm gonna take it down to a 70 because I was so devoted to my characters, and it was a coping mechanism. It was an escape for me. So it's like, if that's just in your head constantly, there's always a way to escape to your mind and to your funny little characters and your worlds you've built, you know? So that really wasn't too much of an issue for me. Some people have the experience of daydreaming interfering with their daily chores or tasks. How much does your daydreaming interfere with your ability to get basic chores accomplished? Alright, This one is a solid 60 because I was pretty on top of getting things done as a kid that needed to be done. But like, if I lump in the time I spent writing and drawing and doing anything related to my characters now, it definitely does take priority some days versus getting things done because, I don't know, I've already made a video on how I struggle with time management, and sometimes you just gotta choose to be creative and not do laundry. I don't know. Some people feel distressed or concerned about the amount of time they spend daydreaming. How distressed do you currently feel about the amount of time you spend daydreaming? I definitely don't do it as much as I used to, but when I was a kid, I was aware that it was what my brain was reverting to constantly. And when I say when I was a kid, I mean like adolescent, like early teens to late teens. I definitely used it as a form of escape all the time. I remember being on road trips and letting hours pass just by looking out at fields and zoning out to thinking about my characters. But I also remember being up at like 3 a.m. with insomnia and not being able to sleep, and then zoning out to my characters but being so interested in whatever I was thinking about relating to them because I get excited when I think about my characters. So it's not inherently going to put me to sleep because I'm unspinning a web of a storyline. It's like you don't want to put a good book down when it's getting to the best part, right? But I was admittedly self-aware that it was something that I was sitting in the back of the classroom and I would start thinking about characters, or really any scenario when I had a few moments to myself. That is what my brain wanted to default to thinking about, and I was aware of it. But was I necessarily super distressed? No. We'll go 60 on this question. Question 7. When you know you had something important or challenging to pay attention to or finish, how difficult was it for you to stay on task and complete the goal without daydreaming? I had breakdowns because it took me so long to do my homework because my mind would wander to other places. This one is easily an 80. Some people have the experience of their daydreaming hindering the things that are most important to them. How much do you feel that your daydreaming activities interfere with achieving your overall life goals? Actually, I think if anything, I've been inspired by what I've written, that it makes me want to be a writer, and actually, finally, now that I'm in my 20s, putting some of the stuff I've daydreamed my whole life about to, putting it out on a piece of paper and actually potentially publishing it one day. That's the thing that's always inspired me, is that any character, literally any character out there, started as someone's idea once upon a time, and they were technically an OC at one point. But ultimately, daydreaming did hinder my life in many ways. It was a heavy distraction from cough cough, kind of personal, but like a social life and some of my education. Like, okay, fuck it, I have a video called Being the Weird Kid. I was indeed the weird kid. I could have been sitting alone in a corner and people would assume I'm thinking about anime or something super fucking nerdy, but that was never the case. In fact, I think that's why I had a hard time connecting with people online about certain pieces of media or specific characters, because I wasn't obsessed with other people's characters. I was so obsessed with the characters that I had come up with, and that wasn't from a place of ego, but again from a place of coping. And I realized I said that last statement almost as if I'm raising it as a question, because I'm even myself realizing now that it kind of was just cope. But I don't care about the optics too much, because some of the coolest creatives in history maybe have a cat or two and just live their lives enjoying their own creative works. So ultimately for this question, I'll go ahead and put a 60, as it did hold me back in some ways, but I'm obviously not tripping over it. Some people experience difficulties in controlling or limiting their daydreaming. How difficult has it been for you to keep your daydreaming under control? Now, if I'm answering from an adult perspective, I don't really daydream as much as I used to, so it would probably be anywhere from 60 and under. But if I am talking about myself at the peak of my teen angst, when this was actually a problem for me, I would say it's a good 80%. Okay, so this one's just asking if I'm annoyed when a daydream gets interrupted. Answering for my kid self, it was probably a 70. Some people have the experience of their daydreaming interfering with their academic/occupational success or personal achievements. How much does your daydreaming interfere with your academic/occupational success? This one is an astounding 90. There was a point in my jobs from my late teens to my early 20s where every job I had gone to, I had a new story that I was brewing in my head while I was working there. And yes, oftentimes it would take precedence over whatever I was working on or working towards being a better employee. No, I didn't give a shit. I had worlds to build in my head. Number 12, some people would rather daydream than do most other things. To what extent would you rather daydream than engage with other people or participate in social activities or hobbies? Answering for my teen self, this is an easy 100, and I feel so strongly about this. Like, I was not the kind of kid that attended school dances or football games or anything along those lines that brought the greater community of students together, mostly because I didn't want to. I wanted to be at home doing anything related to my characters or drawing, writing, things like that. I did not want to do anything else. Okay, question 13. When you first wake up in the morning, how strong has your urge been to immediately start daydreaming? We'll go 50 on this one. Often, I wouldn't wake up and immediately want to start daydreaming because I was actually fortunate enough to have really vivid dreams, which would often involve the characters I created, and a few times I actually created stories of characters that first appeared in dreams. How often are your current daydreams accompanied by a physical activity such as pacing, swinging, or shaking your hands? Oh my god. I swear I did not look up this test beforehand. I just went into this completely blind for the sake of this video, but this one caught me off guard. I legitimately, when I am listening to music and daydreaming, I pace like hell. Like my mind is going a million thoughts a minute and I'll just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. I'm like legitimately surprised this question was on here because I did not know that. But yeah, I'm quite a pacer. Question 15, we're almost done here. Some people love to daydream. While you are daydreaming, to what extent do you find it comforting and or enjoyable? This one is a given. I am gonna go 100%. I didn't even realize that this could be categorized as a problem or like to what extent it tied into other like mental health issues, because I enjoy my characters so much that I welcomed the concept of maladaptive daydreaming when I was a teenager, and it's not like it's something I've willingly like wanted to get over. It's just my life has been preoccupied with other things, but I enjoyed it. And I'm not gonna lie, like there is a community of people that it is a very big problem and they don't want this affliction, but it's something that when it was heavily affecting me, I didn't really care because again, it was cope. But I was also obsessed with my own stories and characters to the point where it's like, say your favorite comfort show is playing on repeat in your head constantly and you just never get sick of it, or your favorite song is playing on repeat and you have some weird invulnerability to just never get sick of that either. It's just something you enjoy that always has a presence or has a very prevalent presence. Why would you want it to go away? Okay, and the final question. Some people find it hard to maintain their daydreaming when they are not listening to music. To what extent is your daydreaming dependent on continued listening to music? Answering for both my younger self and my current self, I would say 90 is pretty accurate for both. As much as I wish that I could just sit here and come up with ideas on my own, music is a big push to actually bring the daydreaming to fruition. Like even speaking as just an artist, sometimes if I have massive art block, all I need is just that little push by having a song that inspires me in whatever way. And I'll be real, I listen to a fuck ton of music. Pretty much most genres have found some way into my playlists. In fact, in the future, I might want to make some sort of mega playlist of stuff that I draw to, because I think that's part of the fun of consuming art, is sharing your enjoyment of it. And that doesn't change when that art form is music. Oh, okay. So I got a 77.5. Looking at it, well, that kind of blows. It doesn't look like it has an extreme range, but I'm over 66.91, so that's the average score for probable maladaptive daydreamers in a study of over 500. This isn't news to me, and I kind of expected it, but if you are someone who is just now learning about maladaptive daydreaming or has kind of known for a while but wants to take the test themselves, I will leave a link in the description. Ultimately, the world can be a shithole, and it's fun to disassociate from it from time to time and think about other things, fictional worlds. things that make us quite happier than the present reality. But there's a point where it can be unhealthy and take over lives, and for that reason, even though a creative mind might enjoy having the ability to daydream, it can't all be looked at as a good thing. Like anything, there's some nuance to it, and if it's something you're struggling with, then I highly encourage you to seek the proper help. We must remember that this is something that many who already struggle with other mental disorders or mental illnesses struggle with maladaptive daydreaming. So while this is not an official disorder, it is something that definitely is not anything to be scoffed at. And for me, I'm a biased party. I'm no scientist or psychiatrist, but goddamn, I am someone who has dealt with this very thing, and I'm really just mostly speaking from my experiences. I can't say it was all bad for me, and maladaptive daydreaming about my characters meant that they were there for me when other people weren't. And I think that might be the core reason why I did it so much, but yeah, if you have ever struggled with maladaptive daydreaming and relate to anything in this video whatsoever, and you feel like talking about it, I do encourage you, leave a comment below. But with all that being said, I'll just end it on this note. Enjoy your art, enjoy your writing, enjoy who you are, live your life. Thank you for being here. I will see you in the next video. Bye.